Thank you.
Davis, try and compress the answers.
Thank you, Chair. I think KQ is, it needs, like I said, there'll be quick wins. There'll be the low-hanging fruits, like I said. I would like to sit down with the staffers and address this challenge in KQ, which I could easily call the low-hanging fruits, but which has really been a major pain in KQ, the industrial relations. We need to have ownership of the entire management and staff of KQ to understand the challenge and that we need to get out of it, because somebody else cannot be paying for our lunch and we just have the lunch. Those are some of the quick wins. Some of the more difficult things which I think have been addressed are those expensive leases, on the 7 leases, where the cost and the revenues are really challenged. And again, we are having to rely on government to pay on behalf. But as it were, KQ, like we'll all have to agree, from an aviation perspective, is a very strategic asset. So it will be one thing to sit down and first things first. What are the low-hanging fruits? What do we need to address? And what kind of ownership? So it's a leadership issue. We really need to address that. One thing which I'm going to put alongside KQ, G2G, and Adani, and I did prepare the challenge that the country faced in the last 4 weeks in terms of how we work, is the aspect of communication and carrying the Kenyans together with us. Article 35 of the Constitution, and I did make a record of that so that I don't fumble around, where every citizen has the right to information. And in Article 69, it talks to public participation in the environment. In 118, it talks to public participation in facilitating public participation in involvement and in the legislative process, public participation in the National Assembly and in the county government in Article 196. And in the finance area, Chapter 12, it talks about there shall be openness and accountability, including participation in financial matters. Chair, I think as government, we feel like information can only be given out when we have been pushed to give information. The public participation is articulated in the Constitution and in the act that has been in Parliament to basically actualize how public participation should be conducted, and which is causing a pain today, including the ruling that we just had the previous day, is something that we need to carry Kenyans as we do some of the things we do, like in Adani, in Kenya Airways, or in G2G. Because G2G was a fairly complex and a quick solution required to address the challenge of the time. But we're trying to explain today, even to members of Parliament, to understand something that was built over a period of 4 months. If we carried everybody along in public participation so that they understand every step as we go forward, we wouldn't be facing the kind of challenges we are facing today. So there'll be need to inculcate public participation from inception as we carry the programs forward, so that we are together with Kenyans at every stage. Of course, how that is done is something that we'll need to really work on. So really, I think we really need to address the challenge that we find ourselves doing what we believe is right for the country, but the population do not quite understand because we did not carry them along the whole journey. The G2G story, Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah, through the chair, I think was a great success for this country. At a time when we came out of COVID, at a time when the Ukraine war was a big challenge, and the inflation rate was soaring at a high of 9%, including in the US and Canada. A very tight monetary policy running even today at 5.25% to 5.5%. And the dollars would rather be in soft trading as opposed to trading with risk. Everybody was basically earning more money, taking their money to the bank. And a situation which did not only affect Kenya, in fact, in the tea industry, we were not selling our tea because there was no dollars out there. It was a global crisis. Let me then answer the point. The G2G
Avoid the temptation to give a lecture.
Yeah.
Answer questions.
Agreed.
Yes.
The G2G chair was brought in to forestall the challenge of unavailability of the US dollars in the industry. And we did build a very quick solution to ensure that the country would not run dry. We could be able to purchase petroleum, pay Kenya shillings, on a deferred LCs, which would be confirmed by international AAA or what you would call investment grade banks over the local issued LCs, and be able to get the product and pay later when the situation improves. It has worked very well. I think we have today brought in over 100 cargoes. We have in account dollars in excess of $3 billion over this. And I think today, if not for G2G, like when we went to elections, Chair, in April, May 2022, MPs will recall carrying jerry cans around the country looking for fuel to run their campaigns because there were no dollars to buy petroleum products. As regarding Adani, so G2G was great. I think it is something, Chair, when there is time and I write my book, it will be one of my legacy delivery to this country. Adani.
You know, you're being guided by the chair to avoid giving lectures, because the straight answer was the dollar was at 160 something.
And
part of the benefits of that is
at 130 today. Thank you.
130 today.
Thank you.
Fuel prices, the prices were trading at then, and what they would have gone.
With respect to Adani, Chair, we look at Adani. We'll need, like I opened by saying, public participation, provide information, have a framework in terms of what you would call term sheets, in terms of what is the correct return on investment when we are bringing a PPP. If we agree that the return on investment is 12 to 15% internal rate of return, if we agree on the debt equity ratio, we should be able to really get Kenyans to understand, get everybody to understand, is Adani a deal we should do? Is it going to help Kenya? Vis-a-vis what I just said, this is an off-balance sheet upgrade of Kenya Airports Authority. If we can't do it as a government, can we allow a private sector player to do it on reasonable but competitive cost or return on capital? Thank you, Chair.
Ned.
Thank you, Chairman and Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to start by saying that and telling the nominee that I think, Mr. Nominee, the issue now that at hand that you need to explain to the vetting committee is that you are getting into a ministry that has a very high, huge pending bill that has no money essential for development of new roads. You need to tell us how you are going to turn around that. What vision, what do you think you will do that will turn around that? That's number one. And number two, in November 2023, no, I mean in 25th of August 2023, during your tenure as Cabinet Secretary for Energy and Petroleum, the country experienced a national grid failure, you remember? And it affected many places, including the airport, including homes, hospitals, everywhere. And the then Cabinet Secretary for Roads and Transport took some decisions and reshuffled people at the airport and sacked some people. But on your side, nothing happened. What could be the reason, and what could have caused the disruption, or what could have caused the grid to collapse? And another thing I wanted to ask you is, you know, we are formed a new cabinet. We are vetting 22 members of parliament, members of the cabinet. And this is a broad-based government, as has been said by the president himself. But the effect of broad-based also is to have development in every part of the country. This country has suffered enough in the sense that there's skewed way of doing road constructions in the country. There are places like my neighbor here in Kikuyu, there is no road remaining, unless now we want to put overhead and overpasses and underground passes. And there are places where still there are issues of roads. What criteria will you come up with?
Honorable Speaker, you need to protect me from my colleague. He can't say there are no roads remaining in Kikuyu when there are actually no roads in Kikuyu.
You'll be protected.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Ask your question.
Mr. Speaker, so I was asking, what criteria are you going to come up with so that roads net distribution is done in an equitable and fair manner? Lastly, there was a road that was supposed to be dualed from, I don't know, here, Kabete or somewhere in Nairobi here, all the way to Rironi, all the way to Mount Summit Junction. And that is where, as we go, every weekend, what is the status? There was an agreement with the French government, but it has never taken off. So, Mr. Nominee, those 4 issues, if you explain,
Yes, there is.
then you may get a good report from me.
Very quickly, for the unfortunate market in KPLC, the transmission network is financed by the Exchequer, through the Exchequer. And with the inadequate financing of the transmission network, most of the challenges that we saw in the blackout was transmission in nature. Chair, we have 2 very specific challenges in Kisumu, Moroni, Chemosit, a network which links to Bomet through Kigati to Awendo, Homa Bay and Awendo. And that transmission network gets overloaded. When a system is overloaded, it drips to secure itself, just like the circuit breakers in our house. When it sends a fault, it will drip. So the drip, due to an overload, became a challenge. We have seen secured funding to get an alternative routing to get more power from Olkaria through Narok, Bomet, Awendo, and Homa Bay. So that the contractor will be on site shortly. We got a funding from Africa Development Bank and address that challenge. The other challenge that has been dripping the country, and where we occasionally, for those of us who live in that region, do pull out feeders. Pulling out a feeder is load shedding. And so a few areas would be load shedding to ensure that it doesn't drip the whole country while we build this network very quickly. We've had a challenge in Takwel, a place called Ortum, Kitale, where we did put some 3 solar plants called Alten, Selenkei, and what happened is those solar plants caused a network constraint. And so we've not been dispatching Takwel because of the take-or-pay challenge of delivery of power into the system. Chair, that has since been resolved. We have gotten the transformers into Otum. Otum is in some place in West Pokot there, and we've gotten the transformer to Kitale. And the network constraint or the congestion of having to transmit more power through a line has been resolved. We are also working on something called to be able to manage voltage stabilization. We are working on STATCOMs on the Ethiopia-Kenya line to be able to address the voltages so that we do not have this intermittence and a network disturbance which causes a blackout. And so those are being addressed. Unfortunately, they belong to Ketraco, where they are addressed through the balance sheet, but that is being addressed, Chair. With regard to...
Point of order, Chairman.
Yes, Mary.
I have not heard him mention Busia and Kakamega, because blackouts cut across. Actually, you cannot even put a business in Busia, because you persistent blackout. So mention something about Busia and Kakamega and Bungoma. Yeah.
Allow me, Chair.
Yes, CHIRCHIR.
Chair, I should have possibly said west of Kenya.
Call me Speaker or Chairman, not
Chairman,
Chair.
Chairman, yes. This challenge is really characteristic of most of west of Kenya. You know, most of the generation is in the Seven Forks.
It's a nightmare.
It's a nightmare. Yeah. But with the construction of the line to carry power from Olkaria direct to west of Kenya, a very good capacity line, that problem will be a thing of the past. That's being
when
done.
Will it be ready?
Another 18 months, but what we are currently doing, we have got mitigation. We've built a line from Sondu through Awendo to be able to deload Chemosit, Kigati. So there's a lot of work being done. And let me say this, Chair.
He's sitting on a chair.
I'm sitting on a chair. I'm not a chair.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Let me say this.
Yes.
Since I came to the Ministry of Energy and Petroleum, we've been working on the critical projects which had been started rather than the appetite of starting new projects. These have been historical challenges. We are sorting them. Whoever comes, my colleague who comes to the office, there are ongoing projects as we speak today. We are accelerating them because of that challenge. In fact, to put lives to the number of load shedding, occasionally on a day-to-day basis, we are load shedding up to 140 customers to be able to remove the overload on the line. So conscious of that, including hospitals, including industries, factories, the tea factories. Conscious of that, Chair, we are working around the clock to ensure that we deliver this in the shortest possible time.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker. I'm not asking a question, but Mr. Speaker, looking at the time, only 3 people have asked questions, and we're almost an hour. So if the nominee, please, could just be short and precise.
Going forward, nominee, when you ask a question, just answer it. Are you selling Kenya Airways? No. Are you pumping in more money? Yes or no. Then we make progress. Let me now start from this side.
Why don't I finish Jeanette? And I'll just, 30 seconds. Rironi Molo was concession to the French company. I think the pricing, again, is what I called a term sheet. We'll relook at that and be able to bring the cost right, possibly do what we must do to deload or decongest that road. It's a matter of priority to be able to move traffic to west of Kenya. The road construction, what criteria will we use? Chairman, I introduced my formative life in traffic engineering, and we'll need to do more of really ensuring we look at traffic, we look at opening new areas for economic purposes. Think about the Lapset. It is a new development corridor. You may not need traffic to open Lapset because we need to shift development to a new development corridor. And so we'll use all those kind of clustered frameworks to be able to open this country, working with the members of parliament like I've worked with most of you on the last mile to be able to open this country. Thank you.
Good. Let me start from Robert. Then we go to Mary, Amisi, Mule, then we come back this side.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
And please ask one question each. Don't make no preamble to your questions.
Speaker, there are very critical things I needed to know from the nominee. So first and foremost, the road maintenance levy that was introduced recently from 18 shillings to 25 shillings by EPRA was done, in my opinion, without reference to the National Assembly. And despite also the fact that Kenyans, when there was public participation, they said no. I would like to hear your opinion about that. And there's some clarity on the G2G deal. Why was National Oil Corporation of Kenya involved? Because there is a belief that it wasn't. And then on the same deal, when you say that you're paying for fuel in Kenyan shillings, I want clarity because I am very well aware that Kenyan shillings are not legal tender outside this country, outside the region. So how is it that you are able to pay for, because that has always been the comment, that we are paying for fuel in Kenyan shillings. How would UAE or other countries out there receive Kenyan shillings as legal tender? And finally, on the transport sector, which you're being nominated to, how will you deal with the 3 critical things? 1, road safety. 2, the menace of traffic police on the roads, and finally, of course, the high cost of transportation. Thank you, Chairman.
Swali moja.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Speaker. Speaker, I would like to ask Davis, our nominee, this one question. The north of Kenya, that is Malindi, Tana River, Lamu, those areas